So, like Rabbi Geffen and Rabbi Green's sermons from the past 2 weeks, you can count this one among the Elul files, is what I'm choosing to call them. I recently saw the movie Sing Sing, which is based on a real story and a real theater group in a New York State prison. And there are a number of High Holy Day themes throughout this film, I guess if you're looking. And I also just really recommend this one as an excellent and powerful story about humanity and vulnerability and connection. And there's one particular scene from it that I would like to share with you. And the main character, who goes by Divine G, and his friend Mike, they're in the rec room. They're sitting across from one another, across a ping pong table, the short way, and they're rehearsing for Divine G's upcoming parole hearing. And he's practicing his speech about why he should be released, and in an attempt to illustrate his strength of character, he mentions, "I was a candidate to become a New York City police officer." To which his friend Mike, playing the role of a parole commissioner, says, "We are not here to discuss who you could have been. We're here to discuss who you are." And that line stopped me in my tracks. We're not here to discuss who you could have been. We're here to discuss who you are. What a prompt for this month leading up to the High Holy Days. That's the question that our study, our prayers, our tradition, our community, perhaps God calls out to us to answer. It's much easier to consider who we could have been or who we could be before who we are at this exact moment. To stay in this realm of comfortable hypotheticals than to take a brave and vulnerable look in the mirror. It's easier because it's much less vulnerable than sharing who we are right then and there. But it is more freeing when we are able to fully be ourselves at this given moment. Of course, there are infinite versions of ourselves that could have been. If that job worked out instead of this one, or if that old relationship turned out differently, if we had called more, if we had been more disciplined, there are always alternate timelines in which we could have turned out more successful or more patient or more open. But that's not who we bring to the High Holy Days. That's not who we bring to services, to study, or really anywhere. That's not who we bring to this process of teshuvah that requires us to take this honest look at ourselves. We get a similar question toward the beginning of the Torah. Soon after Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit, they hear God and they hide. And God calls out, "Ayeka," which means, "Where are you?" God's question isn't, "What could you have been? What would have happened if you didn't eat of the fruit? Why did you fail?" It's simply, "Where are you? Show me the truth of yourself in this moment." Our mystical tradition calls this the quandary of every human being at all times and in all places. How do we respond when God asks, "Where are you?" I might suggest asking ourselves, who are we? Where are we? And whatever comes up, maybe with a pen and paper and a 5-minute timer, maybe with a trusted friend or a loved one, maybe with a member of your clergy, begin to explore your response. Self-awareness is the point from which teshuvah, connection, and spiritual pursuit begin. We're not supposed to show up for the High Holy Days as the perfect, most idealized forms of ourselves. What good would that do? We're supposed to show up as we are, honestly and fully. And the more of ourselves that we can see, the sharper the resolution, the deeper we are able to connect with others, to connect with our tradition, to connect with God. Self-awareness is the first of 6 radio talks that Jewish theologian Martin Buber gave in 1947. Some of you have studied these lectures with me before, as they turned into a book called The Way of Humanity, about building a spiritual life. It's important to note that self-awareness is the first chapter, not the last, because it truly is a starting point and not the end goal in itself. The end goal is everything else that we hope for. Perhaps why we accept the invitations of Elul and the High Holy Days. What do we hope for this year? To strengthen our relationships, to find more meaning in our lives, to feel a sense of belonging. Each of us carry our own hopes, some spoken aloud, some resting quietly on our hearts. But to get there, we start with this challenge. In a heavenly court of the rabbinic imagination, or a parole hearing rehearsal in a New York State prison, in Perlman Sanctuary, in the car, at home, you're not here to present what you could or who you could have been. You are here in this moment as you are. When we accept this challenge from wherever we are, as we are, that's when we begin the journey to the High Holy Days. So, who are you? Where are you? Right now, at this moment, that is the question of Elul. That is the doorway to teshuvah. That is the opening to all that is to come. Shabbat Shalom.